It's another edition of Time About the Movies. We're looking at the movies of October 11th, 1991, and, before we get started, you're probably wondering why I'm sunburnt. Well, that was because I went to the Steelers training camp. I actually did a video, I recently put that up. I'll go ahead and put that in the corner there, but, yeah, despite me having glasses, I really should have brought a hat, because now I've got sunburn, so just wanted to make sure that you guys realize that I'm not sick, it's just a sunburn. So, like I said though, we are going to jump into the movies of October 11th, 1991. We've got 7 movies to look at today, so let's not waste any more time. Let's just jump right on into it. And we'll start with the first movie, Gary Marshall's follow-up to Pretty Woman, that is Al Pacino and Michelle Pfeiffer, in the romantic comedy Frankie and Johnny. So not only was this Gary Marshall's follow-up to Pretty Woman, this was actually the first movie since Scarface that both Al Pacino and Michelle Pfeiffer starred in, and they were lovers in that movie. And, I mean, just on that alone, it actually kind of makes this movie work a little bit better than I think it had any reason to, because obviously Al Pacino and Michelle Pfeiffer are very different in age groups. I think Pacino was in his 70s, not his 70s, his 60s at the time. Actually, let me double check. Okay, I was way off. Al Pacino was like in his 50s, and Michelle Pfeiffer was still in her 30s when this movie came out, so I was definitely off on that one. But, I gotta say, their chemistry still works pretty well here. This is a movie where, unlike the last time these two meet up, there was a whole different angle there with more of the violence going on in here, but this is just a straightforward romantic comedy, and it does work. Both these actors really work off each other very well. You also have a lot of Gary Marshall's recurring people in this, including Hector Elizondo, who was also in Pretty Woman and The Princess Diaries later on. You have Nathan Lane in here, Kate Nelligan. Just a great cast overall here. Some great music by Marvin Hamlish. It's a very good movie. It's an enjoyable film that I did not think was going to be as good as I thought it was, as I thought it was. But it's pretty fun. It's a pretty fun movie if you go into it with the right. If you go into it with the right attitude and you're just looking for a good, fun, romantic comedy to watch, this is definitely worth the time. I'd say definitely check it out if you can. Frankie and Johnny. So, with that said, let's go ahead and look at what some might say would be another fun comedy to look at, and that is Ernest Scared Stupid. So I've talked about the last couple of Ernest movies on this particular show. I've not been the biggest fan of them. I think it's like I said, the only one I really liked was Ernest Saves Christmas, but that was mostly because of Douglas Steele's Santa Claus. So I probably am not the right person to watch these movies. I know Ernest has a loyal fan base to him, and I guess for loyal fan base, they definitely get what they're asking for in this particular film. Fortunately, the movie didn't do so well at the box office, and Disney actually stopped making these movies after 4 films, and they moved the films into independently produced films. And after that, didn't work out so well. That it became a straight-to-video market, and Jim Varney kept making these movies until he died. I mean, good for him, man. Hey, make money any way you can. But I mean, like I said before, I'm not the right person for these particular movies. I think, like I said, the only reason I liked the Christmas one was because of Santa Claus in that one. But I'll give them credit, though. They are at least trying something unique and creative with this. I mean, I do like how the opening of this features a montage of various clips of different horror and sci-fi films. And the creatures designs in this are actually not that bad. There were a couple of moments in this movie that I actually did get a little tense there. It's just like, that was actually pretty good. That was actually good. I mean, I was not expecting that from a movie like this, but like I said, yeah, this movie series really isn't for me. I know it has a loyal fan base, so it definitely fills that fan base's needs, so that's really all I gotta say about Ernest Scared Stupid. With that said, let's go ahead and move on to the next movie, and that is Shattered. First of all, that trailer is amazing. Like, I like how nobody really talks, the music is just playing around, and you get a sense of the plot and just the style of that trailer alone. It's one of my favorite underrated trailers. It's one that I watch all the time. It's a very good trailer, and also, as I'm recording this, Wolfgang Peterson, the director of this, actually passed away a couple of days ago. And Rest in peace, Wolfgang Peterson. I mean, he was really one of the great directors we ever had. And this was actually a really good movie. I really found myself enjoying this a lot more than I think most people did at the time. I mean, it's a very good movie. Great cast overall. Tom Berenger, Bob Hoskins, Greta Scacchi, Corbin Burnson. Probably the only person in here that I was not... I don't think she was bad in this, but... I mean, honestly, I haven't really ever seen anything that I've liked with Joanna Whalley-Kilmer in it. I mean, it's not that she's a bad actress, but I think she's just kept getting these different roles that didn't really give her anything new or unique or different to do something with. And to this movie's credit, it's probably the best thing that she's been in. But that's not really saying a whole lot. I mean, I like her as an actress. I don't think the movies that she's made have been all that great, but this is one of the few ones that I actually did like. And in terms of the twist ending, I can see why people are very divisive about it, but honestly, I found it kind of enjoying for what it was. I got what it was trying to do, and yeah, I really like this movie a whole lot. It's a very underrated thriller, great cast, great direction, great cinematography, just this great stylized look to it that is really impressive to look at every time you see it. I really enjoyed this movie a whole lot. Wolfgang Peterson Shattered. It's definitely worth a watch. So with that said, as I go back to the page here to see what's next, let's go ahead and move on to that next movie, and that is Ken Wall in The Taking of Beverly Hills. So this is another one of those movies that I think kind of got screwed by the studio. They were actually going to release this in the summer of '91, May '91, but Columbia Pictures immediately pulled the release of the film, I think a couple weeks before it actually was supposed to come out. They delayed it to fall, and by that time, Ken Wall's acting credibility and like his status was not as strong as it was. Actually, by '91, his career kind of faded away. Wise Guy had been off the air for a year, and I guess this was his attempt to launch his film career. It's a fun concept, honestly. It's a concept where you have these ex-cops coming in here to plan this big, huge bank heist with all these different houses in Beverly Hills, and this one guy, a football quarterback played by Ken Wall, is the only guy who could save the day. That's a fun concept to work with, and the movie, for the most part, is working with that concept pretty well. But when you really look at it, it is kind of like a Die Hard ripoff, and definitely one of the lesser ones. But honestly, I don't think it's as bad as many people gave it credit for. And honestly, if this movie had succeeded, I could definitely see Ken Wall having a successful acting career. But after Wise Guy ended, but unfortunately, he didn't really do a whole lot after this. I think he did a Wise Guy movie at some point, and then the next movie he did was a movie that came out that was filmed in 1990, but was delayed until '94. I think it was one of the Orion bankrupt projects that they had on the shelf, and they just released them to make whatever money they could. But overall, this movie is, I think it's more fun than people give it credit for. Is it a great movie? Not really. It's kind of cheesy, and it's a little too ridiculous. It's way too ridiculous at times. This is directed by the same guy that did Superman 4: The Quest for Peace and the Iron Eagle movies. So, I mean, he's very hit and miss, and this one almost hits, but it's unfortunately another miss. It's a movie that I think could have been a whole lot better. I think it is a lot better than people give it credit for, but not enough for me to recommend it, unfortunately. It's a shame, too, because I did like the concept a whole lot, but I didn't think the movie worked as a whole. So that's my thoughts on The Taking of Beverly Hills. Let me go ahead and go on to the next movie here, and that is Jodie Foster's directorial debut, in which she stars in Little Man Tate. It is kind of funny how this was set up to be the big Oscar contender for Orion Pictures and Jodie Foster. This was supposed to be the movie that wins her another Academy Award, when Orion actually had another movie with Jodie Foster in '91 that ended up winning an Academy Award, and that was, of course, Silence of the Lambs. But for Little Man Tate, it's a pretty good movie, and it's a great movie to show that, you know, Jodie Foster's not only a great actress, but she can be a pretty damn good director too, and this really shows a lot of what makes her great as a filmmaker. I mean, she really understands the craft of what she's doing. She has a very good story to tell here that's almost in a way kind of autobiographical in terms of her life, because she did start off as a child actress. She did start off kind of as this child prodigy, and then you see how this coming of age aspect that continues throughout the course of the film. Diane Weiss gives another good performance. So does Harry Connick Jr. in this. And the kid who plays the... I can't remember his name now. It's Fred. Fred, by the way, is his name. It's played by Adam Hand-Bird. He's a pretty good actor. I mean, he's a pretty good child actor. He's not an annoying child actor. He doesn't really... It's a shame that his career never really took off after this. And maybe if it did, I don't really know what other movies he did, but he's pretty good in this role. I think it works very well for him. It's a nice little film. It's a nice film that you can watch, be happy with yourself with it, and you might want to check back with him every year or so to watch it. It's a very underrated film, so yeah, definitely check out Little Man Tate. So with that said, as I go back to the page here, I wish I had like a way to do this without having to keep going back and forth. But with that said, let's go ahead and move on to the next movie, and that is Homicide from David Mamet. I mean, when it comes to David Mamet, he very rarely misses. Like, when he usually puts himself behind a project, he really turns out something really, really enjoyable to watch. And before this, he had written and directed House of Games and Things Change, both of which I believe had Joe Mantegna in it. I know House of Games has Mantegna in it. I can't remember if Things Change does, but he's been behind a lot of other great stuff. He wrote The Verdict. He wrote The Untouchables, the Brian De Palma film. He wrote We're No Angels, and the following year, he would have 2 winners with Glengarry Glen Ross and Hoffa. Also wrote Wag the Dog, Ronin. He's just great. Whenever he puts himself on whenever he has a new project, I will watch it. I mean, I've really been a big fan of his work, and this is definitely one of his more underrated films. It's a movie that I don't think gets talked about a whole lot, but it is a commanding performance by Mantegna once again. You also have William H. Macy in here, Ving Rhames. Just a phenomenal cast here working the script. Great cinematography by Roger Deakins. It's a great underrated film. Definitely check it out if you've loved all the other David Mamet films and you're looking for an underrated gem of his. This is definitely it. Homicide, it truly is a great film. So, with that said, let's go ahead and move on to the last movie, and that is John Sayles' City of Hope. So the premise of the film is that it's an intersecting tale with a multitude of characters living lives which, in one way or another, revolve around an old apartment block scheduled to be demolished. That's the plot that I got from IMDb, and if you listen to that plot, it sounds very similar to other movies like The Big Chill, or something that we would get later on down the road with Grand Canyon. You have these characters that you're following, and they all meet up together in a specific setting. And this is one of those movies that definitely feels like that. And, you know, for the most part, it's a pretty good, well-made film. Everybody in here feels very realistic. Nobody ever feels like they're just playing a role and just going with it. For the most part, everybody in here does a very good job. You have a great cast that includes Vincent Spano, Joe Morton, David Strathairn, Chris Cooper, Angela Bassett, Frankie Faison, Gloria Foster. John Sayles himself is in this movie. Gina Gershon's in here. It's a very good, well-made film. It's a nicely done film. It does get the kind of emotions that it is trying to go for. It makes you want to feel angry about the fact that this actually happened, and sadly that some of the stuff that does happen in this particular movie still happens to this very day. It makes you mad. It makes you want to do something, and that's what a good film should do. It should make you think about what you're trying to do. It makes you think about what can you do as a person to decide how to make the world a better place. And movies like that, where you have to think about it, really do make for the best movies, and this is definitely one of the stronger movies to do such a thing like that. It's a very underrated film. If you haven't seen it, definitely check it out. City of Hope from director John Sayles. And so on that note, we wrap up another edition of Time About the Movies. The next time we meet, we look at the 2 movies that came out on October 18th, 1991, including Danny DeVito's Other People's Money from director Norman Jewison, and then we have Vanilla Ice's Cool as Ice. Needless to say, one of these 2 movies is much better than the other one, but I'll let you figure that out for yourself, and then we'll talk about it next time we meet. But until then, thank you guys for watching, and if you want to see more videos like this, check out the playlist on the next page, check out the previous episode, and I will see you folks tomorrow for another episode. So thank you for watching, I'll see you guys next time, and until then, take care.